Before we jump into this crazy story, drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. I love seeing how far these Karen stories of drama and karma can reach across the world. The gate to my ranch stood at the end of a long, dusty road, framed by barbed wire fences and oak trees that had been here longer than I had. Most days pulling up to it was a quiet ritual, a moment of calm before the grind to work. But that evening, as Thiessen beat low against the horizon, and the air carried the dry scent of earth and hay, my pulse spiked at the sight, waiting for me. A bright red sports car sat dead center in front of the gate, its polished body gleaming like a trophy dropped into the dirt. Dust from the road still clung to its wheels, proof that it had been driven here recently. My truck slowed to a crawl, gravel popping under the tires. I gripped the wheel harder than I needed to. Note again, I'd already dealt with plenty of HOA nonsense since moving out here. Petty rules, letters in my mailbox, constant bickering about fences and paint colors. But this was different. Blocking a man's gate was more than arrogance. It was provocation. And from the license plate frame that read HOA Proud, I didn't have to guess who was behind it. Julia. She came storming into view before I even killed the engine, striding out from the side road like she'd been waiting for the moment. Blonde hair pulled tight, crisp white blouse tucked into fitted jeans, phone pressed against her ear. She didn't even glance at me at first. She was too busy yelling into the receiver, her voice sharp enough to cut through the sycashumming in the trees. I told you he can't do anything. This is An Association Road. I've got every right to be here, she snapped, then turned those words toward me as if rehearsed. Her eyes narrowed, locking on me like I was an intruder on my own land. I stepped out of the truck, boots crunching in the gravel. I kept my voice low, calm. Julia, you're parked on private property. That gate leads straight to my ranch. Move the car. She scoffed, holding her phone out like a weapon. Private? This road falls under HOA jurisdiction. You can't gate it, and you sure as hell can't tell me where I can park. My car is not hurting anyone. The ridiculousness of it almost made me laugh. Almost. But there was no humor in the way she stood, chin raised, daring me to challenge her. You're blocking my way home, I said. I pointed to the large sign posted not 10 FT from the gate. Private property. Trespassers will be towed. The law is clear. Now move it before we've got a bigger problem. Her smirk widened. She ended her call with a dramatic tap of the screen and slid her phone into one manicured hand. You think you can scare me with your little cowboy rules? This is America. We have homeowners' rights. You're just some rancher playing soldier with old junk machinery. Her gaze flicked past me to where in the distance. The silhouette of my tractor rested under the barn awning. She let out a laugh, shrill and mocking. What's that dinosaur gonna do? Chase me off the road? I clenched my jaw, forcing down the anger that surged hot in my chest. Reasoning with her felt like shouting into a storm. Still, I tried. Look, Julia, I don't want trouble. Just move the car and we'll pretend this didn't happen. But she had no interest in peace. She pulled her phone back out and with a quick swipe started recording. Her voice climbed in fake distress. Look, everyone, harassment. Threatening a woman for simply existing on a public road. She angled the camera so my face filled the frame as if she'd caught me committing some unthinkable crime. My hands curled into fists at my sides, though I forced them to stay there. She was baiting me, and I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction. Stop playing games, I said. You know, this isn't public. You're trespassing, and that's on you. Tell it to the judge, she sang out. I'll make sure the HOA backs me up. They've already laughed about your little complaints. That part hit harder than I expected. I'd tried calling the HOA before, trying to resolve her nonsense the polite way. They brushed me off every time, siding with her like she was their queen. She knew it. She thrived on it. And now she was leaning into the full weight of their favoritism, daring me to cross her. The red car glistened between us, an obstacle not just of steel and glass, but of pride and power. I could see my reflection warped across its hood, distorted and small against the shine. She leaned a hip against the door, arms folded as if settling in for the long haul. You're not going anywhere tonight, cowboy, she said with a grin that turned my stomach. I breathed deep, catching the smell of hot dust and gasoline hanging in the air. Around us, the fields were silent, the cattle tucked away somewhere far from this madness. The whole world felt narrowed down to the standoff. Just me, Julia, and that gate she had no right to block. I weighed my options. Call the sheriff. They'd take hours to show, and she knew it. Try to tow her car. That would escalate faster than I could control. Plead with her again. That would only feed her ego. Her smirk stayed locked on me, her phone recording every twitch of my face, every word I spoke. She thought she was untouchable. I turned without another word and headed for the truck. Her laughter followed me, sharp and grating. That's what I thought. Run back to your barn, tough guy. But behind my silence, a storm was building. I'd spent years in the service before coming back to this land. Years learning that sometimes you don't fight fire with words. Sometimes you let the other side believe they've won until the moment they realize they've underestimated you completely. I slid back into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel, staring past the hood of my truck at the scene ahead. Julia standing tall, her red car blocking my gate like a trophy, her voice echoing in my ears. She thought this was over. If she wanted to play games, I was about to bring the biggest piece on the board. Before we move on, I've got to mention one of my absolute best stories. It's about a screaming Karen who demanded my business partner's first-class seat and instantly regretted it. That one's wild from start to finish, and I've linked it in the description and end screen. Stick around after this story to check it out. You won't want to miss it. The night after Julia blocked my gate, sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that red sports car shimmering like a taunt in the evening sun. I saw her smirk, heard her mocking laughter, felt the sting of helplessness gnaw at my pride. Out here, a man was supposed to have control over his land, but she had turned my own road into a stage for her arrogance. And worse, she'd filmed the encounter like it was some kind of comedy show. By dawn, I'd already made up my mind. If Julia wanted to test how far she could push me, then she'd find out. Not with yelling, not with phone calls. She thrived on attention, but she also thrived on the illusion of being untouchable. What she never expected was for me to use the very thing she mocked, the old war tractor parked in my barn. That tractor wasn't just any machine. Years ago, I bought it at an auction. A surplus monster from the army, a behemoth with tires taller than my shoulders and an engine that could shake the ground. I never needed it for farming. Not really. But there was something about owning a piece of raw, unstoppable steel that had appealed Tome. Now, for the first time, I realized it wasn't just a relic. It was my ace in the hole. I walked out to the barn that morning, boots crunching over gravel, the cool air still heavy with dew. Dust motes floated in shafts of sunlight slipping through the boards. The tractor loomed in the shadows, hulking and silent like some beast waiting to be awakened. Running my hand over the cold metal, I felt a calmness settle in. Julia thought the game was hers. She thought I was powerless, but today, I'd show her what power really looked like. When I turned the ignition, the engine rumbled awake with a growl that shook the barn walls. Birds scattered from the rafters, the floor quivered beneath my boots. I eased the machine forward, its weight pressing into the earth, each revolution of the tires groaning with strength. Just hearing it alive again was enough to stir something deep inside me, a reminder that even the most stubborn obstacles could be crushed under enough force. By mid-morning, Julia was back, predictable. She parked that red sports car at the same spot, nose pointed at my gate like it belonged there. The sun gleamed off its polished hood, casting sharp reflections into my yayas. Julia stepped out with her usual swagger, white blouse pristine, jeans hugging her frame like she was modeling for an audience. And maybe she was. Two neighbors, drawn by the commotion, lingered at the edge of the road, whispering to each other. Julia noticed them too, and her grin widened. Perfect. The more witnesses, the better. She loved drama, and I was about to give her a show she'd never forget. I rolled the tractor out of the barn deliberately, letting its roar echo across the fields. The neighbors' heads whipped around, eyes widening at the sight of it crawling into the open. Julia's grin faltered just slightly, though she quickly masked it with another laugh. She pulled out her phone again, holding it high like she was filming a parade. Oh, look at this. The farmer thinks he's in the army again. What are you going to do, cowboy? Run me over! She shouted, her voice dripping with condescension. I didn't answer right away. I let the sound of the engine fill the silence. Dust billowed up around the tires as I steered the beast slowly down the dirt path. The ground seemed to vibrate under its weight. Julia's smirk wavered again. When I finally spoke, I kept my words measured, steady. You have one chance to move that car, Julia. One. Her laugh rang false this time. Too loud, too forced. You wouldn't dare. This is harassment, and I'm recording every second. Everyone's going to see how crazy you really are. The neighbors shifted uneasily. Their murmurs carried on the breeze. I could tell they weren't convinced I was the villain here. They dealt with Julia before, too. She'd burned every bridge on this street with her arrogance, and now they were watching closely, curious if someone would finally stand up to her. I advanced the tractor another yard, the engine growling louder. Julia's phone wavered in her hand. She stepped in front of the car now, as if her body could shield it, arms spread wide in a theatrical pose. "You touch this car, and I swear I'll own your land by the end of the month." I leaned forward in the cab, my voice cutting across the distance. "Move the car." The seconds stretched long. The only sounds, the rumbling of the tractor and the distant caw of a crow circling overhead. Julia's expression twisted, torn between arrogance and fear, but pride went out. She crossed her arms, chin lifted defiantly. "Do it, I dare you." The moment crystallized, sharp as broken glass. My hand tightened on the throttle, and the tractor lurched forward with a surge of raw power. Gravel scattered, dust spiraled upward, the machine crawling inexorably toward the gleaming red prize blocking my way. Julia's bravado faltered as she stumbled back to the side of the road, still holding her phone but no longer standing in front of the car. The tractor's shadow fell over the sports car, swallowing its shine in darkness. The neighbors gasped audibly, one of them pulling out a phone to record. Julia screamed over the noise, her voice shrill with panic now. "You're insane, you can't do this. That's a 100,000 car." But her words were drowned beneath the roar of steel and fire. The front tires touched the bumper, nudging it. The car rocked slightly under the pressure, alarm chirping to life in protest. I paused, giving her one last chance, my eyes never leaving hers. "Last warning," I said, my voice cold. "Get it out of my way." Her response was a curse. Venom spat through clenched teeth. "You'll regret this." The choice was made. I eased the throttle again. The tractor surged forward, tires climbing onto the hood. Metal shrieked, glass shattered, the car groaning under the impossible weight. Julia screamed, her voice breaking into raw disbelief. The neighbors gasped again, one covering his mouth in shock, the other muttering a stunned, "Holy hell!" as the car's sleek body folded like paper. The alarm blared, muffled and pitiful, beneath the crunch of steel meeting steel. Dust billowed around me, the smell of scorched rubber filling the air. The tractor pressed down harder, flattening the sports car inch by inch until it lay mangled in the dirt, a twisted carcass of what it once was. Julia stumbled back, pale, shaking, her phone still pointed, but trembling so hard the footage would be nothing but chaos. I pulled the tractor to a halt, the wreckage groaning beneath it, then let the engine idle. The silence that followed was deafening. Julia's mouth hung open, her eyes wide with shock, fury, and the sudden, undeniable realization that she'd lost. The neighbors erupted, one with laughter, the other clapping in disbelief. Julia turned on them, shrieking curses, but their laughter only grew louder, cutting through her rage like knives. I sat back in the cab watching her flail. She had wanted a stage, an audience, and she had one. Only now the script had flipped, and she was the fool at the center of it all. The wrecked car lay crushed under my tractor, a monument to arrogance brought low. And though the fight wasn't finished, though I knew Julia wouldn't give up easily, I felt the tide had turned. For the first time, I saw fear crack through her mask. And that fear told me this battle was far from over, but it was one I was finally winning. The silence after the crushing was almost surreal. The tractor idled, a low rumble beneath me, while the wreck of Julia's red sports car lay flattened, its sleek lines now nothing more than twisted steel and shattered glass. Dust lingered in the air, carrying the accurate scent of scorch rubber. Julia stood frozen, her phone dangling at her side, her face pale and contorted in disbelief. The neighbors, who had witnessed everything, were still processing the spectacle. One of them let out a half-nervous chuckle which quickly grew into outright laughter. The other shook his head, muttering something about finally seeing justice done. Julia snapped out of her shock with a piercing scream. You destroyed my car. Do you have any idea what that's worth?" Her voice cracked between fury and panic, each syllable bouncing off the ranch road like broken glass. She staggered toward the wreck, her hands trembling as she tried to push against the mangled hood as though willing it back to shape. But the machine she had worshipped, polished, and paraded for the neighborhood was gone. I climbed down from the tractor slowly, boots landing with deliberate thuds on the dirt. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I warned you, Julia, over and over. You made your choice. Here he snapped to mine, blazing with hatred. This isn't over. I'm calling the police. I'm calling the HOA. You're finished. She jabbed at her phone, fingers fumbling in desperation. It didn't take long. Within half an hour, the sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder until a county patrol car pulled up beside the scene. The officer stepped out, a tall man with sun-leathered skin who immediately took in the sight. The demolished sports car, the hulking tractor, parked over it, and Julia standing hysterical in the middle of the road. Officer Julia rushed toward him, waving her arms wildly. Arrest him, he attacked me. He destroyed my car for no reason. The deputy adjusted his hat, his gaze steady and unimpressed. Ma'am, slow down. Start from the beginning. She launched into a tirade, her words stumbling over each other. How she had been lawfully parked. How I had threatened her life. How I had deliberately crushed her property in cold blood. She pointed at me as if her finger alone could summon a guilty verdict. The officer turned to me next. Sir, your side. I met his gaze evenly. This is my land. That gate leads to my ranch. She blocked it. There are signs posted everywhere. Private property, notice passing. I asked her repeatedly to move. She refused. I warned her what would happen. The deputy's eyes flicked toward the posted sign, then to the neighbors who still lingered nearby. That true? He asked them. Both nodded, one spoke up. He gave her more chances than I would have. She dared him. Saidi wouldn't do it. Well, he did. And frankly, she had it coming. Julia spun on them, shrieking, You traitors, you're all against me. The deputy sighed, pulling out his notepad. Ma'am, you were trespassing. This isn't HOA property, it's his road, his gate, his land. As for the vehicle, you ignored repeated warnings. He didn't touch you, didn't threaten you physically. From where I'm standing, this looks like consequences of your own actions. Julia's jaw dropped. She stammered incoherently, pointing at the ruined car like it was proof of cosmic injustice. But the law wasn't bending for her this time. The officer's report was clear. Private property violation. Owner acted within his rights. He even reminded her that tampering with posted property could open her up to charges. Her scream sterned from rage to desperation. No. You don't understand. That car was my life, my image. You can't just let him get away with this. But the deputy didn't flinch. He handed her a card for filing civil complaints, knowing full well any lawyer would laugh her out of the room. By the next day, the video hit the internet. The neighbor's shaky phone footage had captured everything. The smirk on her face when she dared me, the tractor rolling forward, the car buckling under its weight, her scream echoing into the open air. Uploaded with captions like Karen gets her sports car flattened and HOA bully meets tractor justice. The clips spread faster than wildfire. Comments poured in. Strangers from across the country laughed, mocked, and dissected every frame. Memes of Julia standing before the tractor-flooded social media. Her bravado frozen forever in digital stone. She had wanted attention, and now she had more of it than she could bear, just not the kind she craved. The HOA board scrambled Protestants themselves. They issued a statement declaring Julia had acted independently and without authorization, but no one cared. Their golden representative had become a public spectacle, and the embarrassment rippled through their ranks. Insurance? They laughed her off, too. Parking illegally in private property voided her claim. Every dime of that crushed car was hers to swallow. I saw her a week later slinking past the road in an old rust-cold sedan that coughed smoke from exhaust. She didn't glance in my direction. Her once perfect blouse was wrinkled, her hair tied back hastily, her expression hollow for someone who'd strutted like royalty. The fall had been brutal. The ranch gate stood clear now, the path unobstructed. Each time I drove through, I felt the weight of victory, not in the wrecked car, but in the silence that followed. No more shouting, no more smug laughter, no more games, just peace. Neighbors dropped by to shake my hand, some bringing beer, others clapping me on the back. You did what we all wanted to do, one said. Another grinned. Never thought I'd see the day someone finally shut her up. I didn't brag. I didn't need to. The truth was simple. Arrogance had met immovable force, and arrogance lost. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold over the fields, I leaned against the fence, watching the shadows stretch long across the grass. The air was cooler now, the cicadas singing again as if nothing had ever disturbed the balance. I thought of Julia, of her smirk, of her car shining like a trophy. I thought of the moment it disappeared under the tractor's weight. Sometimes karma doesn't come with subtlety. Sometimes it comes with steel and rubber, crushing everything in its path. I pushed away from the fence, a smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. Julia had wanted a war. She just forgot I still had the tank. And for those watching my story unfold, I'll say this. When you see arrogance standing in your way, remember what happened here. Remember the roar of that engine, the sound of steel crumpling under justice. If you enjoyed this showdown, hit that like button. Share it with someone who's had their own run-in with a bully. And don't forget to subscribe because sometimes the only way to deal with a Karen is to let karma roll right over.